Have you ever wondered why some people seem to glide through life, winning in business, relationships, and power, while others struggle despite working hard and doing the right thing? It's not luck, it's strategy. In this video, we're revealing 15 dark, unspoken laws that brilliant minds use to shift perception, control outcomes, and outsmart the crowd, all grounded in Stoic clarity and psychological precision. These laws aren't tricks. They're timeless principles rooted in human behavior. Why scarcity increases your value, why silence is stronger than defense, and why kindness can be sharper than force. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you master your thoughts, the world responds. So if you're ready to protect your energy, think 10 steps ahead and move with quiet power. Start here, like this video to support the message, and subscribe with notifications on. It's time to stop reacting and start moving with intent.
Number 1.
Use absence to increase your worth. In a world obsessed with visibility, where everyone is online, always responding, constantly proving their relevance, those who understand the power of absence quietly rise above the noise. The Stoics saw this long before our age of endless notifications. Epictetus taught that the wise withdraw not from life, but from neediness, the need to be seen, heard, validated. Because the truth is simple. When you are always present, you become part of the background. But when you step away with purpose, you become magnetic. Why? Because human nature undervalues what's overly available. When you respond instantly, always say yes, always show up on demand, your presence starts to feel cheap, expected, then taken for granted. Even beauty fades into the wallpaper if it never leaves the room. Marcus Aurelius, though burdened with the weight of an empire, regularly disappeared into solitude. Not because he didn't care, but because he knew the strength of clarity comes in silence. And when he returned, he moved with calm force. That's not weakness, that's design. This principle is echoed in modern psychology through the law of scarcity. We value what we can't easily access, and when it comes to your presence, access is everything. If you allow everyone to reach you all the time, you communicate unconsciously that your energy is free, and what's free is rarely respected. But when you step back, even briefly, your silence becomes a message. Your absence becomes a mirror, forcing others to reflect on your worth and your boundaries. Take Steve Jobs as a modern example. He wasn't in every room, on every thread, or endlessly reachable. That wasn't neglect. It was strategy. He knew his time and energy were his edge. By showing up only when necessary, he concentrated his presence. And when he spoke, people listened because they weren't used to hearing him ramble. He preserved his voice by using it sparingly, and that silence amplified his impact. But let's be very clear, absence is not passive aggression. It is not ghosting, flakiness, or emotional withdrawal. It is discipline. It is strategic space-making. The Stoics didn't vanish out of fear. They stepped back to sharpen their focus. Seneca called this retirement within action, a pulling inward to fortify the soul before re-engaging the world. When done right, absence doesn't create distance. It creates depth. And here's what most people miss. The power of absence is not only in how others perceive you, it's in what it gives back to you. It returns your time, it returns your energy, and it returns your ability to see clearly without the distortion of noise and reaction. When you are constantly present, you are constantly adjusting, constantly diluted. But when you retreat, even briefly, you reclaim the space to see who you are and how you want to show up. So how do you apply this now? Start by noticing when you're overexposed. Are you always available? Always responding instantly? Always part of the noise? That's not presence, that's self-erasure. Start pulling back, not to punish, but to recalibrate. Turn off your phone for hours. Skip the unnecessary meeting. Delay the reply. Let people wonder. And more importantly, let yourself return with something valuable. Insight, clarity, direction. Because your true value doesn't lie in being constantly seen, it lies in being deeply felt. And to be deeply felt, you must first step away. You must let silence become your signature. As Seneca warned, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. The man who never vanishes is never truly noticed, but the one who appears only when it matters, he becomes unforgettable. In a world addicted to attention, don't compete by being louder, compete by being rarer. Let your absence speak volumes. Then when you return, let your presence remind the world why you were missed.
Number 2.
Weaponize trust strategically. Trust is powerful, but unchecked, it is also dangerous. The Stoics never told us to distrust everyone, but they warned us. Human beings are inconsistent, motivations shift, words deceive, and what is given too easily is rarely valued, Seneca wrote. You should not open your heart to everyone. Why? Because when you offer trust freely, without examination, you place your peace in the hands of uncertainty, and that is a gamble a wise person does not make. Trust, when earned and measured, is a mirror. When people trust you, they begin to relax, and when they relax, they stop performing. That's when the truth slips out, about their motives, their ethics, their priorities. This isn't about manipulating others, it's about observation. To see a person clearly, give them space to reveal themselves, and trust does exactly that. It exposes who they are when they think they're safe. Most people confuse being good with being open. They believe that sharing everything, trusting instantly, and being emotionally available proves character. But Stoicism doesn't reward emotional exhibition. It rewards judgment. Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak." That doesn't just apply to your words, it applies to your trust. Know what it means to give it before you do. Warren Buffett once said, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it." But look deeper into that. Buffett doesn't just protect his name, he protects who he trusts. His circle is tight, his decisions are based on character patterns, not charm. He doesn't let someone close because they seem impressive. He watches how they handle pressure, how they treat others when no one's watching, how they respond to loss. That is Stoic discernment in motion. And yet none of this means you should live with suspicion. Stoicism is not paranoia. It's poise. You don't assume the worst, but you prepare for what is most likely. You slow down, you observe, you allow people time to show you who they are. Because time is the great revealer. What is hidden behind flattery, urgency, or emotion often falls apart under the weight of consistency, and only the real can endure time. Strategic trust means you see clearly without being jaded. You recognize that someone's behavior under comfort is not always their behavior under stress. You understand that motives change when stakes change, and you accept this, not bitterly, but wisely. That's why trust should be treated like currency, earned slowly, distributed selectively, and withdrawn without guilt when abused. When you operate this way, you gain something even more valuable than protection. You gain presence. You're no longer distracted by betrayal, confusion, or misplaced loyalty. You become steady, and ironically, your self-control builds trust in others. People feel your boundaries. They recognize you don't move impulsively, and they respect you more for it, even if they never say it out loud. In practice, this means you ask better questions. You look for patterns, not performances. You listen for contradiction between words and actions. And most importantly, you watch how people treat you when they think your guard is down, because that's when the truth comes through. Unfiltered, unguarded, and undeniable. As Seneca warned, he who does not prevent a crime when he can encourages it, and blind trust given too quickly often makes us complicit in our own downfall. So trust, but not blindly. Believe in people, but test that belief over time. Be open, but only after they've earned access. In the end, it's simple. Trust is not a gift. It's a gate. You are the keeper. And if you protect that gate with wisdom, you protect your peace, your energy, and your future. Observe calmly, trust slowly, and always remember, it is better to be underestimated than betrayed.
Number 3.
Align with self-interest, not sympathy. If you want to move people, don't appeal to their compassion, appeal to their self-interest. This idea may seem cold at first glance, but it is one of the most honest insights into how influence actually works. The Stoics taught us to see the world not as we wish it to be, but as it is. Marcus Aurelius said, "You must build your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." In other words, act with intention and understand the forces that truly motivate others. Sympathy is fleeting. It may win you a moment of pity, a passing gesture, or a kind word. But self-interest? That moves mountains, because when someone sees how helping you helps them, they become invested, not just emotionally, but rationally. They begin to champion your cause, not as an act of charity, but as an extension of their own gain. The mistake many people make is assuming the world runs on fairness or moral obligation. It doesn't. It runs on alignment. When your goals align with someone else's incentives, movement happens. When they don't, stagnation follows. No matter how worthy your request might be, Seneca reminded us, a gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver. The intention behind most human action is rarely altruism. It's alignment. Take Oprah Winfrey, one of the most powerful communicators of our time. Her influence didn't come from pleading for sympathy. It came from creating value, emotional, financial, and personal, for the people she worked with. She built a media empire by helping others reach theirs. Whether it was authors, thought leaders, or brands, people supported her not just because they liked her, but because aligning with her elevated their own platform. That's not manipulation, that's clarity. So how do you apply this? Start by removing the language of begging from your communication. Don't ask people to help you because they should. Show them how doing so benefits them. Make the upside obvious, whether you're negotiating, pitching, or simply asking for time. Frame your request in a way that honors their self-interest, not in a way that burdens them with yours. This shift changes everything. It moves you from a place of emotional dependence to strategic alignment. It respects the truth that people are motivated by their own needs first. And that's not selfishness, that's human nature. The Stoics didn't resent this, they worked with it. And here's where the real depth lies. When you understand people's self-interest, you understand their priorities, their values, their fears, and once you understand those, you can build real trust, not by pretending to care about what they care about, but by honestly connecting your goals to theirs. This is influence without illusion. It is strategy without manipulation. In practice, this means doing your homework, learning what matters to the person in front of you, understanding how your success can help theirs. It means walking into a conversation with clarity, not desperation, and leaving it with alignment, not obligation. Because ultimately, the world doesn't reward neediness. It rewards clarity. And the more you align your request with someone's self-interest, the less you'll have to convince them with words. They'll move because it makes sense. And that, the Stoics would say, is the highest form of agreement. Not forced, not emotional, but rational and enduring. So stop pleading for pity. Stop hoping people will just do the right thing. Instead, understand what they value and show them how your win is their win. Align with self-interest and you'll move farther, faster, and with far less resistance.
Number 4.
Disarm with strategic kindness. Kindness is not weakness. When used with intention, it becomes a tool of quiet power, one that disarms resistance, lowers defenses, and opens doors that force could never crack. The Stoics, often mischaracterized as emotionally cold, knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, wrote daily reminders to meet ignorance with patience, cruelty with calm, and insult with restraint. Not because he lacked strength, but because he understood what actually works. Most people assume the path to respect is through dominance, by being louder, tougher, more aggressive. But real power doesn't posture. It doesn't need performance. It simply is. And that's why kindness, when it comes from composure, becomes so effective. It's not softness, it's discipline. Why does it work? Because most people are wired for conflict. They expect to be challenged. So when you meet their energy with aggression, you confirm their fears. But when you respond with calm, with grace, with measured clarity, you interrupt the script. You disrupt the emotional pattern, and in that moment, influence begins, not by force, but by contrast. The Stoics called this prohairesis, the power to govern your own reactions. No matter what happens outside you, your internal response is yours alone. When someone insults you and you remain composed, you haven't lost. You've demonstrated mastery of self, of emotion, of the situation, and that is strength at its highest level. Take Keanu Reeves. Despite global fame, he's known not for arrogance, but for his grounded kindness. He gives without overextending. He listens without shrinking. And people respect him not in spite of this, but because of it. He doesn't perform kindness. He embodies it, not for approval, but because it's who he is. That's what makes it powerful. But make no mistake, strategic kindness is not blind tolerance. It's knowing when to offer warmth and when to walk away. It's rooted in clarity, not fear. Because when your kindness is conscious, not reactive, it becomes a signal of strength, not submission. So how do you apply this? First, redefine kindness. It's not being overly agreeable. It's not letting people walk over you. It's strength wrapped in composure. It's generosity with boundaries. It's choosing to be calm when you could easily escalate. It's knowing you can hit back, but choosing not to because you have nothing to prove. Second, let go of expectations. If you're kind just to be liked, that's not stoic. That's insecurity. Real kindness has no strings. It doesn't depend on being returned. You offer it because it aligns with your principles, not because you need validation. Third, don't be afraid to withdraw it. When someone crosses the line repeatedly, you don't need to retaliate. You don't need to justify. You simply step back. Let your absence be the consequence. Let your silence say what words can't. Often, nothing unsettles a chaotic person more than being met with pure, quiet indifference. And here's the deeper truth. In a reactive world, composure is rare, and what's rare is respected. Strategic kindness makes you unpredictable. It leaves people unsure how to attack you, and that hesitation creates space for influence, for clarity, for control. As Epictetus said, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Strategic kindness is the clearest expression of that wisdom. It's not passivity, it's poise. It's the ability to remain centered when the world pulls at your edges. So don't flinch, don't perform. Disarm not with aggression, but with grounded presence. Let your restraint become your roar. Let your calm become your reputation. And when others lose themselves, let your kindness remind them. You never had to.
Number 5.
Become irreplaceable, not just useful. There's a difference between being useful and being essential. One is replaceable. The other is unforgettable. The Stoics never told us to chase applause. They told us to chase substance, to become the kind of person who adds so much value, so much clarity, that their absence creates a void. This is the difference between someone who fills a role and someone who defines it. Being useful is where most people stop. It means you're dependable, competent, good at your job. But here's the harsh truth. Usefulness invites replacement. If others can do what you do, they will. And eventually someone will do it faster, cheaper, or with a shinier pitch. Usefulness without uniqueness is a short-term strategy. That's why the Stoic doesn't aim to merely function. He aims to stand apart. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In other words, stop debating your worth, demonstrate it, show up with principles, clarity, and presence so undeniable that your contribution becomes a stabilizing force. That's how you become irreplaceable. So how do you do it? First, identify your edge. What is it that only you bring to the table? It might not be your title. It might not even be your hard skills. It could be your calm under pressure, your ability to simplify chaos, your refusal to cut corners. It could be how you make others feel seen and safe. Irreplaceability isn't just about being the best. It's about being the one who brings something no one else can replicate. Take Steve Jobs. He wasn't the best engineer. He didn't write the code. But he saw something others missed: the intersection of emotion, technology, and design. He wasn't just useful. He was essential to Apple's identity. Even when others disagreed with him, they knew his presence shaped the direction. That's the mark of someone who doesn't just contribute, they define the standard. Second, protect your edge. Once you know what makes you rare, protect it like a sacred fire. Don't dilute yourself trying to be everything for everyone. The fastest way to become forgettable is to chase broad appeal. Instead, go deep. Double down on what only you do well. Build it with such consistency that imitation becomes impossible. As Epictetus warned, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Meaning, stop performing, start mastering. Third, make yourself hard to forget. Irreplaceability is emotional. It's how people feel when you walk in or when you walk away. It's in the clarity you bring during crisis, the high standards you hold when others want to coast. Useful people wait to be asked. Irreplaceable people anticipate. They see around corners. They protect what others overlook. They add value even when no one's looking. And here's where the Stoic distinction matters most. Becoming irreplaceable isn't about feeding your ego. It's about responsibility. When you carry unique value, you carry it with humility, not because you want recognition, but because it aligns with virtue. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction." Likewise, your edge, your uniqueness, is sharpened through resistance, difficulty, and unwavering discipline. So stop asking, "Am I doing a good job?" And start asking, "If I disappeared, what would fall apart?" That's your leverage, not in noise, not in attention, but in impact, in the silent void that's felt when you're gone. In a world full of performers, the Stoic plays the long game. He doesn't just fill a role, he becomes the reason that role matters. So sharpen your edge, guard your presence, and remember, the truly irreplaceable don't announce their value, they embody it. Number 6, protect your energy from the unstable. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people arrive like a storm, loud, chaotic, and unpredictable. They thrive on crisis, feed on drama, and leave you drained. The Stoics warned us clearly, guard your peace as you would your life. Because without peace, you can't think. Without energy, you can't act. And without boundaries, you become a puppet to the moods and madness of others. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." He didn't say to fix people. He didn't say to save them. He said to choose. Choose your company, choose your environment, because energy is not just a mood, it's your internal currency. It powers your focus, your ability to stay centered, your capacity to endure. And when that energy is constantly being hijacked by unstable people, you begin to live in reaction, not intention. The modern world often mistakes compassion for codependence. You're praised for being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly drained. But that's not strength, that's leakage. That's self-neglect disguised as virtue. The Stoics taught that real compassion requires clarity, knowing the difference between helping someone and enabling their chaos. Consider Robin Williams, a man whose spirit lit up millions, yet privately struggled with inner storms and attracted people who often took more than they gave. His life is a sobering reminder. Being generous does not mean being boundaryless. You can give light to the world, but if you don't protect the flame, it burns out and no one else will notice until it's too late. So how do you protect your energy in a world that constantly pulls at it? First, learn to recognize patterns, not performances. Unstable people rarely arrive with warning signs. They arrive with intensity. They compliment you too much, demand too quickly, bond too fast, and then, just as quickly, they swing into withdrawal, blame, or crisis. They keep you guessing more than they keep you grounded. That's not connection, it's emotional control. Second, listen to your nervous system. Your body knows before your mind catches up. If you leave conversations feeling drained, anxious, or off-center, don't explain it away. That discomfort is your signal. It's your intuition, your internal Stoic compass, telling you something here is costing you too much. Third, build a practice of solitude. The Stoics didn't run from life, but they returned to themselves often. Marcus Aurelius spoke of building an inner citadel, a fortified space within where noise cannot reach. This isn't withdrawal, it's restoration. In solitude, you see clearly. You remember who you are beneath the demands and projections of others. And most importantly, change the story in your head. You are not responsible for regulating the storms in someone else's soul. You are responsible for managing your exposure to it. That is the line. Stoic compassion doesn't mean drowning in someone else's chaos to prove your goodness. It means remaining steady enough to be of true service, if and only if they're willing to meet you in clarity. In daily life, this looks like choosing not to argue. It means ending conversations that spiral into dysfunction. It means saying no without explanation, walking away without apology, and preserving your space without guilt. You don't owe access to anyone who confuses your kindness for weakness or your presence for permission. As Epictetus said, keep your will in harmony with nature. And what is nature? It is order, rhythm, stability. The unstable pull you out of that. They spin, they spiral. But if you're grounded, you don't follow, you observe, you hold, you return to yourself. So remember, your energy is your edge. It is your clarity, your fuel, your compass. Don't give it away to confusion. Don't waste it on people who burn everything they touch. Guard it like a sacred fire, and let only those who feed it, who honor it, stand near its warmth. Number 7, let action silence the noise. In a world addicted to argument, performance, and endless justification, there is rare power in doing and saying nothing. The Stoics live by this. They believe that results outlast rhetoric, that words are cheap, but disciplined action cuts through confusion like a blade. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time talking about what a good man is. Be one." No statement is louder than that. We are constantly pushed to explain ourselves, to defend our motives, prove our worth, and manage others' perceptions. But here's the Stoic truth. Every word spent defending yourself is energy taken away from building yourself. Every time you react to noise, You reinforce it. You become part of the theater rather than the force moving behind it. The Stoics didn't waste breath debating their intentions. They moved with purpose. They didn't chase applause. They cultivated clarity, action, steady, aligned, and quiet was their argument. Seneca wrote, "It is not what a man says, but what he does that shows his worth." And that's still true. The man who shows up every day without drama, without spectacle, commands a different kind of respect. Consider J.K. Rowling, rejected by 12 publishers, living on welfare, and unknown to the world. She didn't go online to rage against the system. She didn't tweet her disappointment. She wrote again and again. She kept submitting, kept refining, kept believing, and when success came, it needed no announcement. Her action had done the speaking. She didn't need to convince people of her value. She simply became undeniable. So how do you do this in real life? When criticism, noise, and misunderstandings surround you? First, practice the pause. When someone mocks your ambition, questions your decisions, or misunderstands your intent, pause, don't react. Ask, does a reaction improve the situation? Most of the time it doesn't. The strongest move is often to let your next step, not your next sentence, do the work. Second, release the burden of constant explanation. You don't owe everyone access to your inner process. You are allowed to evolve in silence. You are allowed to change without public justification. The Stoic understands that true growth is not performative. It is lived quietly, daily, intentionally. As the philosopher Musonius Rufus reminded, philosophy is not a thing to be discussed. It is a way of life to be practiced. Talk less, transform more. Third, build a rhythm of consistent output. A single action impresses people, but 100 quiet actions transform perception. One gym session is admirable. 1 year of discipline is powerful. The Stoics didn't talk about who they were becoming. They became it, slowly, privately, until there was nothing left to debate. And here's the most important part. Silence isn't weakness. It's protection. It shields your process. It guards your clarity. It keeps you from entangling with people who want distraction more than truth. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. You have something better, proof, and over time, proof silences everything. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. When you act from alignment, when your values move your hands and shape your habits, people see, maybe not at first, but eventually, undeniably, they see. So, the next time you're tempted to explain your journey, prove your worth, or argue your vision, don't. Build, move, execute. Let them wonder, let them doubt, and let your actions speak in a language that can't be twisted, denied, or ignored. Because in the end, the loudest thing in the room isn't the one yelling, it's the one doing. Quietly, consistently, again and again. Remember, the world may ignore your words, but it cannot ignore the weight of your results. Let your life speak so clearly that silence becomes your most undeniable argument. Number 8, draw people in without chasing. There's a quiet authority in the person who doesn't chase, a presence that doesn't beg or demand, but quietly attracts. The Stoics taught that true influence comes from self-possession, not persuasion. When you need nothing, you become magnetic. When you chase, you signal lack. But when you cultivate inner abundance, the world turns to face you. We've all seen it. The more you chase validation, the further it runs. The more you force connection, the faster it breaks, whether in business, love, or social circles. Desperation repels, yet composure draws people in. Effortlessly. That's not magic, that's psychological gravity. And the Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. Freedom from what? From clinging, from the desperate pull of needing others to see, like, or validate you. True freedom is this: to become so rooted in who you are that you don't reach to be seen. You become unignorable by simply standing in your truth. Keanu Reeves is respected not just for his work, but for his stillness, his refusal to perform off-screen. He doesn't flood interviews. He doesn't force charisma. He lives simply, speaks minimally, and yet has built a cult-like admiration. Why? Because people sense presence. They gravitate to peace, and peace, real peace, doesn't chase. So how do you stop chasing and start drawing people in? First, reorient your attention inward. Most people focus outward, on how they're perceived, how they rank, how they're received. But the Stoic focuses inward. What are my principles? What am I building? What am I practicing when no one's watching? When you fix your gaze on your path, others begin to turn toward you because they recognize someone not trying to be seen, but someone simply being. Second, create value in silence. Don't announce every win. Don't beg for credit. Let your actions speak. Let your skills grow. Let your vision sharpen. The person who is consistent without fanfare gains a reputation that no performance can fake. You don't have to declare your worth if your work reveals it. Third, develop what the Stoics called euthea, a straight course, a clear intention. Don't twist yourself to fit in. Don't mold your personality to appeal. Stay in alignment. That kind of integrity pulls harder than charm. It builds trust. People may not understand it at first, but they feel it. And this is where modern confusion sets in. People mistake loudness for strength and pursuit for purpose. The Stoic knows the oak doesn't chase. It stands, it roots, it endures. And by simply being itself, everything from birds to shelter seekers is drawn to it. Your value doesn't need to shout, it needs to deepen. If you carry yourself with quiet certainty, not arrogance but stillness, others pause. They sense something steady and real. That pause is where respect begins. Because in that space you're not reaching, you're radiating, and people feel drawn, not out of obligation, but out of curiosity. Resist the urge to explain or chase. Let people sit in your silence. In that space, if you are aligned, they'll feel it. Because you held, the absence of need creates space for respect to grow. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the approval of 10,000 is nothing if you lack your own. Begin there. Respect yourself so deeply that anyone else's respect becomes a bonus, not a requirement. So remember, you don't draw people in by proving you're worthy. You draw them in by becoming so rooted, so steady, so whole, that they want to understand the quiet power behind your restraint. Number 9, lead the vision, own the outcome. The world doesn't remember the helper, it remembers the leader. Not because people are selfish, but because vision is rare, and ownership of that vision is even rarer. The Stoics understood this not as ego, but as clarity. If you see the path, you must walk it first. If you want the credit, you must bear the weight. If you want the outcome, you must lead its direction. Too often, people wait for permission. They hide behind collaboration, afraid to claim authorship. But when the project succeeds, who gets remembered? The one who dared to say, "This is my vision," and when it fails, the one strong enough to say, "This was my responsibility." Ownership is power, not domination, but accountability. It's the quiet force behind every respected figure in history. Stoicism teaches radical responsibility. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, never blamed others for his burdens. In his Meditations, he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A leader does not complain about the conditions. He adjusts the sails. He sets the tone. He becomes the reason, not the excuse. Consider Elon Musk. Regardless of what people think of him, one thing is clear. He leads with vision. He doesn't simply build what's profitable. He builds what he believes must exist. When SpaceX succeeds or Tesla stumbles, he owns the outcome. That's why people follow him, because they feel the weight he's willing to carry. But leading the vision is not about shouting orders. It's about embodiment. Become what you expect. If you want discipline, live it. If you want trust, give it. That's how leadership works, through resonance, not authority. So how can you lead without losing yourself? Start by clarifying your own standards. Not the standards the world handed you, but the ones your conscience demands. Then live them so completely that people feel your presence even when you say nothing. When your values become visible through your choices, you lead without effort. Others follow not because you told them to, but because your example invites them upward. Second, take ownership of outcomes, even the messy ones. When things fall apart, don't look for who to blame. Ask, what part of this was mine to control? Third, remember that you cannot outsource vision. You can delegate tasks, but never purpose. If you've seen something clearly, it's yours to shape. Don't wait for agreement. Begin. And if people don't understand yet, that's okay. Vision is always lonely at first. Here's what most people miss. Ownership isn't about control. It's about clarity. When you own a vision, you accept that not everything will go as planned. You accept failure as part of the terrain, but what you refuse to do is abandon the direction when the winds shift. The Stoic leader doesn't just adjust strategy, he re-anchors purpose, he returns to why he began. That's why vision is more than ambition. It's devotion, a devotion to something larger than comfort, image, or applause. When you lead with that, people don't just follow, they trust. And in a world full of noise, that trust becomes your rarest currency. Leading the vision also means absorbing the consequences. When it works, you'll be praised. When it fails, you'll be questioned. But the Stoic welcomes both with evenness. Don't ride admiration or sink under criticism. He stands because the vision fuels him. So ask yourself, are you waiting to be chosen, or are you choosing yourself? Are you reacting, or are you directing? Are you supporting someone else's blueprint or drafting your own? Lead the vision, own the outcome, because in a world of passive spectators, the one who moves with purpose, bearing the burden of direction, rises quietly without applause. Number 10, be so real they can't ignore you. In a world full of filters, facades, and curated personas, being real has become a superpower. Most people perform, editing themselves just to be seen. But the Stoic knows, visibility without authenticity is hollow. To be truly seen, you must be radically yourself, not louder or flashier, just real. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never regard something as doing you good if it makes you betray a trust, or lose your sense of shame, or makes you show hatred, suspicion, or insincerity. What you gain through pretense costs your integrity, and what you build without truth cannot stand." Being real means anchoring yourself to something deeper than popularity. It means being willing to be misunderstood if it keeps you in alignment. Stoicism isn't about being liked. It's about being whole, about standing in your nature consistently, even when the world doesn't clap. Let's look at Dave Chappelle. At the height of his career, he walked away from a $50 million contract, not out of rebellion, but clarity. He sensed the show was veering away from truth, that laughter was coming at the expense of his integrity, so he left quietly. While others called him crazy, he stayed grounded. Years later, he returned, not with apology, but with command. Not louder, but deeper, and the world listened. He had become so real, he was impossible to ignore. Being real doesn't mean being unfiltered or aggressive. It means being congruent, When your words match your values, when your actions match your principles, people feel it, even if they can't explain it. That congruence builds something stronger than popularity. It builds pull. So how do you become so real that the world can't look away? First, stop trying to fit in. The moment you start editing yourself to belong, you begin disappearing. The Stoic chooses identity over acceptance. You weren't made to blend. You were made to express something unique, and when you do, people either align or they exit. Second, commit to saying what you mean, not to offend, but to clarify. Most people dilute their words to avoid tension, but truth is inherently disruptive. Say what needs to be said, not with sharpness, but with sincerity. You'll lose some approval, but you'll gain something rarer: respect. Third, protect your rituals, your mourning, your reading, your practice. Whatever anchors you to clarity. The more you return to your inner compass, the less you're swayed by the noise outside. That's how you stay real, by staying close to yourself. Let time do the editing. You don't have to fight for recognition. Just speak with honesty, live with consistency. Eventually the fog clears, and the one still standing never pretended. Here's the hidden strength of being real. You don't chase moments, you build legacy. The Stoics knew that identity formed through truth was unshakable. Epictetus reminded his students not to aim to please, but to aim to be whole. If you wish to be good, first believe that you are bad, he said. Not in self-contempt, but in self-honesty. You can't build truth on self-deception. And so, being real means you're not afraid to be seen clearly. You can sit in a room and not perform. You can lose attention and still hold presence. Your value lives in alignment, not reaction. This kind of presence doesn't happen overnight. It's cultivated through rejection, silence, reflection. That's your power. In a world of fast impressions, you become the slow burn, remembered for depth, not noise. The one who didn't bend, didn't fold, didn't disappear to please. Being real isn't a tactic. It's not a strategy. It's an alignment. And the Stoic understands. Alignment is louder than branding, rarer than charm, and stronger than any performance. So be so real they can't ignore you. Not because you shouted, but because your silence carried weight. Not because you impressed them, but because you revealed truth in a world of mass. Number 11. Let your comeback echo loudly. In a world that thrives on spectacle, most people believe silence is defeat, but the Stoic knows better. Silence, when rooted in preparation, is not weakness. It's momentum. And when the time comes to return, to rise, to reappear, you don't announce it. You let results speak so loudly they echo in rooms that once dismissed you. Setbacks are inevitable. Failure, rejection, betrayal, they come for everyone, even the wise. But what separates the Stoic from the broken is not immunity to pain, but how they choose to respond. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, how you interpret the fall determines the force of your return. Your comeback doesn't begin with applause. It begins in solitude, in the quiet hours when no one is watching, and the ego is stripped down to its bare self. That's where rebuilding happens, not to prove people wrong, but to restore your peace. Consider Robert Downey Jr. His fall from grace was public, painful, and prolonged. Addiction, arrests, exile. For years, he was a cautionary tale. But instead of protesting, he vanished. Into the work, into the healing, into the silence. And when he returned, it wasn't with a campaign. It was with Iron Man, a performance so undeniable, it redefined his legacy. That's not just a comeback, that's mastery. Here's what most people get wrong about comebacks. They think the world needs to validate it before it's real. But the Stoic sees through that illusion. You don't need permission or applause to heal. What you need is clarity, self-command, and the humility to start again without needing the world to notice. That's not weakness. That's power. Let's take another example. Brendan Fraser, once a star in Hollywood, then mocked, injured, and forgotten. He faced health problems, personal trauma, and a decade of professional silence. But he didn't chase relevance. He focused on recovery. When he returned with The Whale, he revealed, the world cried with him because his presence wasn't a performance. It was truth returned to the screen. That's what makes a comeback unforgettable. So how do you make your return felt, not just noticed? First, reclaim your focus. The mind loves to dwell on who hurt us, who doubted us, but clarity doesn't live in the past. It lives in your current discipline. Begin there, build again, not to impress, but to align. Second, embrace the silence. Don't narrate your healing. Don't explain your work. Let it mature privately. The Stoic doesn't beg for belief. He becomes impossible to doubt through consistent action. Third, redefine what success means. Don't let revenge drive your rise. Let clarity, peace, and strength shape it. When you rise to impress others, you're still their prisoner. When you rise because your soul demands it, you're finally free. And finally, when you return, don't shrink. Don't apologize for healing. Don't whisper your victory. Let it echo, not with arrogance, but with the quiet weight of someone who found something unbreakable. The Stoic comeback isn't about shouting, "Look at me." It's about living in such a way that others can't help but notice the transformation. Not because you demanded attention, but because the light you found in the dark now shines through everything you do. So let your comeback echo loudly, not because you spoke, but because your presence now carries the weight of everything you endured, everything you outgrew, and everything you chose not to become. Number 12. Guard your words, guard your power. In a world addicted to oversharing, the most underestimated form of power is restraint. People explain, defend, and announce, often out of insecurity disguised as openness. But the Stoic knows, the more you reveal, the more you risk. Every word is a window into your mind, and if your mind is undisciplined, your words become a trail others can follow, straight to your weaknesses. Epictetus said, practice silence. For the most part, say only what is necessary. This isn't about secrecy, it's about sovereignty. A wise person speaks with purpose, not for attention. They speak when it improves silence, not just to fill it. In today's world, silence unnerves people. When you don't explain yourself, they assume you're hiding something. When you don't react, they think you're weak or arrogant. But let them think, let them guess, that uncertainty is power, because what they can't predict, they can't control. Consider Keanu Reeves. He rarely grants interviews. He doesn't boast or narrate his life online, and yet he's one of the most respected and trusted figures in Hollywood. Why? His absence from noise makes his presence more meaningful. He guards his words like a gate, only opening when it serves something higher than image. Seneca warned, speech, if it is not necessary, is harmful. Words aren't just expressions, they're decisions. When you speak, you reveal how you think, where you hurt, and what you fear. The wise speak slowly, not from doubt, but calculation. Think of Rick Rubin, the legendary music producer. He's not loud, he's not flashy, he's not constantly online pushing content. Yet his silence in the studio has shaped some of the most iconic albums of the last 30 years. Artists say he doesn't fill the room with ideas. He clears the space so truth can emerge. That's power through restraint. Here's the paradox. The more you speak, the less people listen. But the less you say, the more they lean in. When you speak, every word lands heavier. So how do you use silence as strength? First, don't disclose plans prematurely. When you share your intentions before they mature, you open them to doubt, interference, and sabotage. Protect them. Second, resist the urge to respond immediately, especially in conflict. A delayed response is often the most powerful. It says, I choose clarity over reaction, and in that space you gain power others throw away. Third, simplify your speech. Complexity is often camouflage. When your words are clean, they cut deeper. Don't say everything, say what matters. Fourth, when others speak too much, listen more. People tell on themselves. They reveal insecurity through boasting, fear through gossip, weakness through flattery. If you stay silent, you'll learn everything you need to know without saying a word. Restraint is not repression. The Stoic doesn't bottle things up out of fear. He contains what doesn't serve and expresses only what uplifts, clarifies, or protects. So before you speak, pause. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Is it helpful? Is it true? If it's not all three, it might be wiser to remain quiet. The one who guards his words guards his peace. In chaos, peace is the rarest power. The Stoic knows this. Silence doesn't mean absence, it means presence. With discipline, the world may tempt you to share, react, and perform, but your words are currency. Once they leave your mouth, you can't take them back. But when you hold them with care, they become sharp, clean, and unforgettable. Guard your words because in the end, people remember less of what you said and more of how clearly you stood in your silence. Number 13, conceal the path, reveal the result. There's a quiet kind of genius in those who move without broadcasting. In a world obsessed with process, posting every step and narrating every move, the Stoic does the opposite. He conceals the path. He reveals only the result. Why? Because the more others know about your direction, the easier it is for them to interfere. Jealousy, doubt, sabotage. They don't need much. A glimpse of your goal is enough to trigger resistance. But when you work in silence, you move in peace. You grow in shadow. You rise without friction. Marcus Aurelius warned, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And nothing invites outside control more than oversharing your intentions. Every time you announce your plans too early, you give others an opening, not just to criticize, but to derail your rhythm with their expectations, their projections, their noise. Look at Steve Jobs. He didn't explain his next product in interviews. He didn't let Apple's vision be shaped by speculation. He waited, he worked, he released, and when the results arrived, they spoke for themselves. That's how legends operate, through revelation. Seneca said, work in silence. Let success make the noise. He understood that the greatest power is often the one that goes unnoticed, until it can't be ignored. In nature, the most powerful forces don't make announcements. The sun doesn't declare it's rising. The tide doesn't explain its return. They simply arrive and everything adjusts. Consider Banksy, the elusive street artist whose works appear overnight and vanish just as quickly. He never shows his face, never attends exhibitions, and never explains his messages. Yet his silence creates mystique. His unpredictability creates reverence, and his results, bold, raw, unforgettable, speak louder than any biography ever could. That's the art of moving without being tracked, creating without constraint. The Stoic mind recognizes that visibility is vulnerability. Every person who knows your method is a potential source of interference, consciously or not. And interference doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it's the concern of well-meaning friends, the questions, the suggestions, the subtle fears. They pull you out of focus. They interrupt your rhythm. So train yourself to be patient with invisibility. Progress doesn't need to be seen to be real. A diamond forms in darkness, A masterpiece begins in a sketchbook no one ever sees. And when the time is right, unveil with precision, not to prove anything, but to share something complete, something unshakable, something that's already weathered doubt in the silence where it was born. This is the Stoic advantage. While others are busy narrating potential, you're building proof. While they're trying to be understood, you're mastering yourself in solitude. First, recognize that secrecy is not deceit. It's discipline. You're protecting growth early on is fragile. Second, value solitude. Most people broadcast because they want to be seen, even before they succeed. But the Stoic prefers to be unseen until the work is undeniable. Silence isn't emptiness, it's incubation. Third, learn to detach from the need to be understood. Some of your decisions won't make sense to others. That's fine. You're not here to explain. You're here to build. When the results come, they'll either get it or they won't, but by then it won't matter. And finally, stop giving people maps. When they know how you move, they can block you, but when they don't, they're always one step behind. The Stoic moves like water, shapeless, silent, yet unstoppable. He doesn't signal the wave, he becomes it. Conceal the path, reveal the result, let your outcome teach them, and by the time they realize what you've done, it's already too late to stop it. Number 14, transform opposition into strength. To the average person, an enemy is a threat, but to the Stoic, an enemy is information, a mirror, a hidden teacher. Not because conflict is enjoyable, but because opposition reveals what comfort hides. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." We often surround ourselves with people who agree with us, flatter us, or avoid confrontation. While that may feel safe, it keeps us blind. True clarity comes when you see what your critics see. Without taking it personally, the wise don't argue to defend themselves. They listen to learn, filter what's useful, and discard the rest. Even more importantly, enemies don't fake it. A fake friend might conceal their envy, a rival doesn't, and that honesty, however brutal, is valuable. It's raw feedback. It shows you your vulnerabilities. It shows you what people believe about you. Take it with discipline, and you gain strength. Consider Elon Musk. He's had critics on every side, media, industry, even regulators. Yet he doesn't crumble under scrutiny. He studies it. He addresses what's real. He ignores the noise. And when challenged, he doubles down on execution. That's the Stoic way, not to react emotionally, but to respond strategically. Now here's the twist. Sometimes your enemies understand you better than your friends. They watch your habits, your patterns, your weak spots. This means their insight, when separated from their hostility, can become a blueprint for your improvement. So how do you apply this? First, never reject criticism just because of who it came from. Even if it's said with malice, ask, is there any truth in it? If so, extract it, grow from it. Second, learn from the structure of your opposition. How do they see you? What do they assume? What do they fear? In their resistance, you'll find clues about your own power. People don't attack what they don't perceive as a threat. Third, don't be quick to destroy an enemy. Sometimes, if the timing is right and the principles align, an enemy can become an ally. A former opponent, when won over, is often more loyal than someone who never doubted you at all, because they've already tested your character and found it real. And finally, never waste emotional energy trying to be liked. Peace is not found in being agreeable to everyone. It's found in being clear, being true, and being immune to the noise of people who don't know your mission. Look at Oprah Winfrey. In her early years, she was ridiculed, underestimated, and told she was unfit for television. Critics mocked her tone and background. But she didn't dissolve under the weight of that judgment. She built a brand by turning criticism into connection. The best revenge is clarity, to rise until their arrows miss completely. Epictetus said, "If evil be spoken of you and it be true, correct yourself. If it be a lie, laugh at it." You don't need public defense or vengeance. You simply move. So when opposition comes, and it will, don't tense up, don't collapse. You've been handed a mirror, and with it, you get to decide, will I react or rise, knowing pain is the price of refinement? Let them doubt you, build quietly, intentionally forward. Every critic is another stone sharpening the blade. Turn your opposition into strength. It's not personal, it's preparation. Number 15, master yourself before challenging power. There's a mistake many brilliant people make. They reveal their strength too early. They outshine the ones above them before understanding the structure they stand in. They mistake ability for timing and sabotage their rise. Stoicism teaches patience, not just as virtue, but as protection. Epictetus warned, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's not a call to immediate action. It's a blueprint for discipline. You don't announce your greatness, you build it in silence until the moment to reveal it cannot be denied. In a world that worships talent, few realize how dangerous it is to showcase that talent in front of someone insecure. People rarely reward being outdone. They resent and retaliate, not because you were wrong, but because you made them feel replaceable. That's why mastering yourself is not just about ability, it's about restraint, knowing when to speak and when to be silent, when to support and when to lead, when to wait. The Stoic doesn't rush to prove, he moves with precision. Take Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks. Before becoming a public name, he spent years quietly learning the ecosystem of the business. When he first proposed transforming Starbucks from a coffee bean retailer into a cafe-centered brand, he wasn't immediately embraced. Instead of forcing his vision, he waited. He learned. He watched the existing power structure, and when the opportunity was right, he acted decisively. That patience didn't dilute his ambition. It preserved it. The truth is, the master in any system holds invisible power. They may not be smarter, but they have leverage, relationships, and legacy. And if you challenge that without understanding it, you create enemies before you've created security. So how do you apply this law? First, study the structure before disrupting it. Know the people, the flow, the egos, the expectations. As Marcus Aurelius said, observe continually all that comes to pass and all the ways in which it happens. Second, check your motivation. Are you driven by purpose or the need for recognition? The former builds legacy, the latter burns bridges. Third, never expose your full strength in unstable environments. Mastery isn't just about force, it's about timing. A well-executed whisper is more powerful than a mistimed roar. And finally, focus more on inner mastery than outer validation. It's better to be underestimated than prematurely envied, because when you grow quietly, they don't see you coming, and by the time they do, it's already too late to stop you. This is where many promising people fall short. They mistake speed for strategy. They want recognition now, but early recognition creates pressure instead of power, and when things go wrong, that same spotlight becomes a magnifying glass for failure. Look at Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. Before stepping into the highest role, he spent decades quietly mastering the company's internal systems, engineering, product development, cloud infrastructure. He was consistent, and by the time the board looked for a new leader, Nadella wasn't just a name. They saw him as a necessity. He had already earned quiet trust, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. Stoicism reminds us, true power doesn't need a stage. It needs stability, and stability is built in the shadows. By growing without applause, the Stoic doesn't rush into power, he grows into it. Your ambition doesn't have to be loud to be lethal. Sharpen it like a blade. And when the moment comes, cut through the noise with quiet precision. The Stoic plays the long game. He avoids spotlight and noise. He knows that those who rise too fast are often knocked down just as fast. When the foundation is solid, step forward with force. Never outshine the master, but never stop becoming one. You've just seen the 15 darkest laws genius people use. Not to manipulate, but to survive. In a world where kindness is exploited, where visibility is a risk, and where strength invites envy, you need more than talent. You need clarity, silence, timing, and the courage to move without applause. Remember, it's not about being feared or adored. It's about being untouchable in your purpose. The Stoic path isn't loud, but it is unstoppable. If this video spoke to something inside you, something tired of being underestimated, overlooked, or drained, then it's time to reclaim your edge. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because your discipline will terrify those who only pretend to have peace.